Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Marvin Jenkins, and I'm the coordinator for the Women's Business Center for Maryland Capital Enterprises. We are a nonprofit organization. We assist women entrepreneurs who are either starting a new business or looking to expand their existing business. We service the Eastern Shore of Maryland, plus Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County. And we offer a lot of educational programs, workshops, one-on-one consulting and counseling, as well as business loan assistance. We have two offices, one in Salisbury, Maryland, and the other in Baltimore, Maryland. And today's webinar, well, before I get to that, I will be sending out the recording of today's webinar with other information that hopefully you'll visit our website and look at some of the other classes that we have coming up. But today's webinar is the part 2 of the MBE, DBE, SBE workshop. And our presenter is Rosalind Davis, who's the president and CEO of Roda Business Solution. And we always love having Rosalind do this for us. We appreciate all that she does. She's our expert in this field, so we really appreciate her doing this. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Rosalind, and we can get started.
All right. Hey, Marvin, I understand we had like 49 people sign up, so we know life happens. So not everyone will be able to join, but like Marvin said, this will be recorded. So even though they're not here with us today, that'll give us a little bit more opportunity to maybe answer some of your questions that are applied to your particular application. But again, like Marvin said, you will get the recording, and so will everyone who has signed up. So I am going to share my screen. Can everyone see the slides?
Not yet.
Okay, let's try that again. Let's actually start the share screen. There we go.
Now,
yeah, that's better. A little technical error there. But anyway, we will get started here. Oops. There we go. So I'm gonna actually hide that a little bit. All right. So hello, everyone. Again, thank you for joining today's webinar. This is part 2 of the MDOT certification. Again, I'm Rosalind Davis. I'm the president and CEO of Roda Business Solutions. So we are a consulting firm in the Washington, D.C. metro area where we focus on business transformation, strategic planning, change management, but we also do talent management as well, where we focus on leadership training and executive coaching. And finally, we focus on business administration support. We are a certified woman and veteran-owned, minority-owned small business, again, located in the Washington, D.C. metro area. As always, I want to thank the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center Director Lisa Twilley, and also Marvin Jenkins, who always provide this platform so that we can provide this training workshop to you all. My disclaimer before we get started, the screenshots that you're going to see in this presentation are actual screenshots, captures from the MDOT certification online application. But the views and the opinions that will be expressed during this webinar are my views, and there are no way views or the opinions of the government or any other entity. And finally, I would recommend that if you have not already done so, you might want to use the top right corner of your Zoom screen and switch to the standard view so that you can kind of enhance your visibility of the screenshots. And if any time during this presentation, you can raise your hand, you could post it in the chat. Marvin will let me know, hey, we got some questions, and I will take a pause and answer your questions. So you do not have to wait until the end to get your question answered because you may forget. All right, I've already posted in the chat the link to where you would start your application. Here's the agenda that we're going to talk about for part 2. So part 2, we did a review of part 1. We're going to go through what we kind of briefly touched on in part 1. We're going to go through the airport concession certification. We're going to talk about some required documents because there is a mandatory list and then there's a if applicable list. And then we're going to talk about some key takeaways and conclusions. Now, one thing I always want to remind everyone is that there is no cost to apply for MDOT certification. There's no cost. So you should not have to pay someone to do your application for you because Maryland does not charge for their application. And just another reminder, it's a 4-step process. So the first step is application submission, investigation to include an on-site or a virtual visit and an interview. And then the third step is an evaluation to see if you meet the eligibility requirements. And then the fourth is determination. This is your decision letter where you'll get your approval or denial. It usually takes about 3 to 4 months. I'm hearing it may take a little longer these days because they did just move to a new portal system and a new online uniform certification application. So it may take a little bit longer. So I just want to caution you with that. Now I'm going to stop my video because I kind of want you to focus on what's on the slide and not me perhaps moving my head around or my hands or something. So I'm going to stop my video, but I'm going to continue with this briefing. So in section 1, we kind of went through all these things here that are green on the slide. So once you complete section 1 of the certification, so it's section 1 through 4, your screen should look like this where it's all green. So section 1, it asks for your basic name, phone, email address. The section 1 prior says it wants to find out where you determine which certification you are applying for. Because remember, you can apply for all 3 or 4 at one time, and you do not have to do them separately. Section 2, business profile. This is where you enter your North American Industry Classification Codes, or NAICS codes, and then the number and type of employees that you have, either full-time, part-time, or seasonal. But then also you're going to enter your gross business receipts. I want to let you know that when you enter those gross business receipts, that it is going to be one of the mandatory documents that you will have to upload for verification when we get to that section. And then it talks about relationships. So relationships, ownership in another business, a subsidiary, etc. Owner information, the year that you own and your percentage of the business that you own. And then they're also going to ask you, how did you acquire the business? Did you infuse cash? Was it a stock option? Was it donated to you? How did you acquire the business? And they're going to ask you, how much did you invest into it? And then it's going to ask about your personal net worth. And so we're going to get into that form in detail today because that form is very important and it needs to be notarized. Section 4, it talks about officers and board of directors. You could list yourself as an officer and board of directors if that applies to you and you perhaps a company of one. So there's no fault in listing yourself in both of those positions. Management personnel. It's asking about your duties and responsibilities. It's talking about the resumes of those individuals that you listed in the part 1 that we talked about. You also need to supply the resumes to support those positions as well. Again, if you're the only person in your company right now, then you only need to upload 1 resume. Inventory. So again, it's asking for your business equipment and vehicles and your office space as well and storage space. Financials, banking information, sources of loan. Just make sure that what you put on the personal net worth statement, it actually matches the questions that you answered on the financials. And for that banking information, it needs to be a signature authorization card saying who's authorized to sign on behalf of the business on the bank letterhead, but also with your company name stated in that letter. And then finally, in these application process is licenses and contracts. So the licenses are for trades, sort of like plumbers, electricians, architects, and then the contracts is asking for your 3 largest contracts. And you will have to upload those when you get to the documents section. And just finally, remember, you can complete any of these in any order that you desire. and the green will show that you have completed that section. So it's a good visual representation to show what you have completed and what still needs to be completed. So the airport concession, ACDBE. When you get to the airport concession, if you choose to actually get that certification as well, there is a part here at the bottom where you would review those questions, and then when applicable, upload those documents to support that. Most people just get the MBE, DBE, and SBE. There are some specific requirements with the airport concession, but there's 5 mandatory questions that you do have to answer for the airport concession. And so the questions are you applying for it? Does the applicant or firm own and operate any airport location? So these are all mandatory questions. So you would just answer accordingly and then hit the submit button so you can move on to the required documents section. And this is where you're going to spend most of the time, is gathering your documents. And like I mentioned in part 1, you want to make sure that you go through the checklist that applies to your business and pull together all the documents and that information before you start your application. Because once you start the application in the system, you have 90 days to complete it. If you don't complete it within that time frame, they will delete your application and you will have to start over. And so the last question on the airport concession application, it relates to joint ventures. So if you have a joint venture, you will need to upload that agreement in the documentation section. Marvin, I'm going to pause right there and see if we have any questions.
No, we had one early on asking, is this for transportation only? And I responded that no, it's not just for transportation.
Oh, thank you very much. So moving into the required documents, and that's what part 2 is all about, the required and documents that you have to upload for your application. So based on your company structure, such as if it's a sole proprietorship, LLC, partnership, or corporation, I highly recommend that you download and review the applicable checklist. I put the link to MDOT certification in the chat, so you can go there and download that checklist that applies to your business. On this slide is a list of common documentation that you will need to have on hand, regardless of the certification that you're going for. So you'll also notice that 2 of these documents must be notarized. And so I will show you later in this presentation what an affidavit of certification looks like. We're going to talk about some state business registration documents. I'll give you some tips about what should be in your resume, proof of citizenship, and then the personal net worth. We'll go through that statement in detail because there are some landmines there, and I want to make sure that you get over those hurdles. And then you also want to need 3 to 5 years of your personal federal tax returns and 5 years of your business federal tax returns. And I will tell you how, if you don't have some of those years that are not applicable to your business, how do you get around that so that you can continue to submit your application and it goes through at least to the review process. And then you're also going to need 3 years of your year-end financial statements. Again, that bank signature authorization form, a letter, and you will need your vehicle title or registration, whichever applies, and then insurance if you use your POV for business, and then those licenses and contracts that we talked about. Now, keep in mind that the MDOT certification application is all online, even though there is still some remnants in their application online that talks about facts, but it's all online. And then finally, if you are already certified a DBE, which is a disadvantaged business enterprise, or airport concession disadvantaged business enterprise in another state, then you don't have to complete this application for MDOT. You just have to let MDOT know what that certification is, who you got that certification from, and that will satisfy you for Maryland for just the DBE and the airport concession DBE.
Rosalind, we do have a couple that just questions that popped up right after the last one.
Okay, go ahead.
The first one says, do you recommend we compile our required documents and then apply so we don't lose time?
Absolutely. So, like I stated, go through the checklist, make sure you can answer all those questions, and then have that supporting documentation that you need before you start the application, because the clock is ticking and you get 90 days. Once you actually go into the system and start your application, and you get that application number.
And the other one was, can you cover again the necessary financial documents that are required for the application, more
Yep,
specifically for a new business?
we're going to get into that in more detail, but this here is just a list of required documents, regardless of whether you are a sole proprietorship, LLC, partnership, or corporation. We're definitely going to get into more about how many years of personal, business tax returns that you need and financial statements. So we're going to get into that in more detail. Okay. So in MDOT's application, there's two sections. There's a mandatory section of documents, and then there's a if applicable. So if it applies to your business, you will need to upload those documents. And I will show you how to say something that does not apply and make sure that it's no longer visible on your screen so that you don't have to upload it. But first, let's get into the mandatory. So again, if you haven't already, you might want to make your screen a little bigger so that you can see the slide. So here is the list of mandatory documents, and this is what it's going to look like in the online portal. So the first one is the affidavit of certification for your disadvantaged business enterprise. So you can download it right there, complete that documentation. And it's basically asking what's your name and what's your protected class, but it also needs to be notarized when you sign it. And then you would come here and upload it. The next one is your personal net worth statement. So if you recall in part one, there was a question that asked you about your personal net worth, and I recommended that you at least put a number there. But once you complete your personal net worth statement, you'll have a better idea of what that number is. So go back and enter that number so that it matches this statement. Now, this statement also needs to be notarized. And I recommend that you download this particular statement on their website because you'll have the current version. And I'm going to show you the current version during this workshop. The next one is your signed and dated business federal tax returns, and then your federal tax returns. And so I'm going to just kind of briefly talk about these, but I'm going to go into more detail in the coming slides as to what each of these documents could look like. So your proof of good standing, ID documents, bank authorization, proof of contribution. So this would be if you infuse cash into your business. Let's say you use $20,000 of your own money. You just want to show some type of receipt that says you took $20,000 from your personal funds and you put it into your business. Just some type of documentation to show that paper trail. And then the resumes. Again, I'm going to tell you about certain things that need to be in your resume because they're looking for that language. And then year-end financial statements, I'm going to talk about that. And they do not have to be from a certified CPA. They could be an Excel document. Your articles of organization, and then any original and operating agreements, and then your profit sharing agreements. So the first one, again, this is mandatory, and this is what this document looked like, downloaded recently. So it is the most current version. As you can see here at the top, the expiration is May 31st, 2027. Again, you fill in your name, you check off all the applicable boxes that apply to you, and then when you're in front of a notary is when you sign and date it. And once it's signed and dated and notarized, you just come back and upload that into your application. Now, this is your personal net worth form. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time and go through this. So again, you want to make sure that you have the 5/31/2027 version because they did do a little bit things different on this personal net worth form, but right here at the bottom where I have it circled, personal net worth. So once you have calculated that, and it's a manual calculation, don't assume that the form will do the calculation for you, because it will not. So once you figure out your assets and liabilities and get to your personal net worth, you enter that number here. But again, part one, where I talked about enter a number in that application where it just asked a question, just make sure that those two match. So for the personal net worth, they're asking you to complete this for the majority owner or owners of the company. There is a cap to applying for MBE and DBE certifications. So for instance, if you are applying for a minority business enterprise certification, the cap on your personal net worth is $2,073,412. And it will tell you that when you go online to apply. For the disadvantaged business enterprise and the airport concession disadvantaged business enterprise, the threshold is a little lower, and it's at $2,047,000. So keep that in mind as you apply. And some of you may be wondering, hey, I'm retired military, I'm retired civil service, I retired from a commercial entity, and you're worried that you will just immediately bust the cap on the personal net worth. But there are some assets that do not count towards your personal net worth. So keep that in mind, and I will go through in detail what those are. So the key thing is to remember that once you have this form completely filled out, you will need to get it notarized. So it needs to be signed and dated from a notary, and then you will upload it into your application. I'm going to pause right there, Marvin, to see if we have any questions before I get into more details as to some of the specifics on the personal net worth.
None in the chat right now.
All right. So again, you're going to report the personal net worth of the majority owners and your retirement assets. So like your 401k, maybe your TSPs, you're going to enter them on worksheet number 13, but you're not going to enter that number on your personal net worth statement. So that's where I was saying, don't be alarmed that you may have, millions of dollars in your retirement assets, because you're not going to enter them on your personal net worth statement. This page right here, you will enter them on the worksheet where it's required.
We did have one question just pop up.
Yes.
They wanted to know, does the business have to be at least 51% owned in order to qualify for a women owned?
Yes. But remember, this is not a woman-owned certification. This is for a minority business enterprise. And so that is one of the protected classes, but that person has to be the 51% owner. Does that answer the question?
I think it must have, yeah.
All right. So also on the worksheet, it's on the personal net worth, it's going to ask you about your primary residence. So whether you still have a mortgage or your residence is paid off, you're not going to enter it here on this personal net worth page 1, but you're going to complete the worksheet to at least identify that there is a primary residence and if there is a mortgage or something tied to it. And so the key with the personal net worth statement is to make sure you account for all the assets that they're asking for in this personal net worth statement and complete the worksheets that back up that information. Not all information, such as your retirement assets and primary residence, will be entered on this form here on the screen, but you do have to account for it. And it's for the 51% owner that's applying for this certification.
Another one just popped up. Said, for the net worth statement, do we also need to include outside stock investments or rental properties?
Yes. Yes, you do. And I would highly recommend, there is a lot of information in the personal net worth that you can download from the application. to read through it very carefully, because there are a lot details in there that I'm not going to take the time to go through today, because we could spend a whole hour on just the personal net worth statement. But I want to get through all the rest of the documents that are either mandatory or if applicable. But it is a very important document and it will be scrutinized heavily. And you just want to make sure that all your numbers add up. So it asks for your business and personal taxes. So what I've done here is I scratched out where it says the e-file signature authorization. So most of us are doing e-file for our taxes. But when it comes to this application, they want you to print off that page where it would be an e-signature, and they want you to put your wet signature on there. They will kick your application back if it does not have a wet signature. So again, print off just that page, sign it, but then put it back into your taxes to go with the rest of the forms in your taxes, and then upload it. And that's for personal and business taxes. Any questions on that?
None in the chat.
Okay, so once again, don't just sign and upload, and I think it's a form 8879. You have to sign 8879 with a wet signature and include the whole 1040 or whatever tax form that you use. So another mandatory document is your proof of good standing. So hopefully you've already filed your proof of good standing, because it's due no later than the 15th of April of each year if you're a Maryland registered company. And the cost is around $40. And it's an immediate download. So it's like $20 for the certificate and then a $20 for rush. There's no way around it. It just costs $40. Because it's immediate download. It's not like they're mailing you anything, but you're still paying that $20 for that expedited fee. So the good thing is you'll have it right away if you're in good standing with Maryland. So here's some common reasons that a business may not be in good standing. First, you might not have filed your annual report or your personal property tax return. So now you can actually do these filings online for your current and previous years using Maryland Business Express. So this is what it looks like here on the screen, Maryland Business Express. Another reason that you may not be in good standing is there's a monetary penalty resulting from late filing of your annual report or your personal property tax returns. Now, to clear that up, you can pay on your business in your online profile for your business with Maryland Business Express. Another reason that we see there may be an issue with the Maryland Office of Comptroller, or if you have employees, maybe the Maryland Department of Labor, where you may not have been filing your unemployment taxes properly, or you're withholding with the state. Another reason is a check or some other form of payment that may have been dishonored, or not having an active resident agent if you're required. Businesses can easily submit a resolution to change their resident agent online using Maryland Business Express. And I want to just, again, this is the opinions of myself and no opinions of Maryland Capital Enterprise or any other business entity, but I have heard of some people using like LegalZoom or some other online legal service to do this resident agent for them for a fee. Again, to change your resident agent with Maryland, there is no cost. So with that, are there any questions on the proof of good standing status?
None so far.
All right. So another mandatory document is this is what the proof of good standing looks like. Right here where I've circled in red, company is at the time of the certificate is in good standing to transact business. So that's what you want. And this is what the certificate looks like that you will download immediately once you pay that $40 fee. So additional mandatory documents is proof of citizenship. And so this list here is just some acceptable documents that you can provide to show your proof of citizenship. Passport, birth certificate, driver's license that's not expired, permanent resident card, naturalization certificate, or another form of government issued ID. That bank authorization form, again, it must have your bank name, your business name, and then the person who is authorized to sign checks or do business on behalf of the company. All that must be on that bank authorization form. Proof of contributions. Again, this is just showing that you have invested some funds or something into your business to get it started. This could be your state business registration receipt where you have started your business in the state of Maryland, and I think we paid like a $300 fee. It could also be your good standing certificate, the one where you just paid $40. It could be a domain receipt where you actually have a website, you pay to have that website, a developer or whatever. Or it could be your accounting system. If you use an accounting system to keep your books, you can use that as well. And then also your EIN letter that you get from the IRS. So these are just some examples of how you can prove your contributions to your company. Additional mandatory documents. So again, the resumes. You want to make sure that your resumes for all officers and key personnel have that language that we talked about in part 1. And I'm going to briefly go through that real quick. So it's going to say, do the manager or officers of the firm set policy for the company? Are they in the position to do the bidding and estimating, major purchasing, marketing, and sales? Attend bid openings and meetings, perform office management, do the hiring and firing, do they obligate the business, do they purchase equipment, and then do they sign checks? So all that type of language is listed on the checklist. It needs to be in the resume because they will look for that in your resume to show that you are an officer or an owner of the company and that you are in charge of these particular functions. And again, if you're a company of one, list all of these things that are on the checklist in your resume. Year-end financial statements. Again, they're looking for your balance sheet, profit and loss statement. These do not have to be from a CPA. If you have that, that's fine. And so they want the audited financial statements if you have that. But again, it could be something from QuickBooks or any other accounting bookkeeping system that you may be using, or it could just be an Excel document as well, or some other type of spreadsheet. So your articles of organization, Maryland articles of organization, you just upload a copy that you received when you initially registered your business in Maryland. So you will get that back. So you can use that to upload. And then for an operating agreement, when I started my business, I didn't have an operating agreement, but I just Googled it, found a template, filled it out. You know, there's some typical paragraphs. It's like, where's your business located? What's the purpose? How is the company managed? And then types of books, records, and tax returns. Like, how do we keep our books? What type of records do we keep? Our tax returns, how often are they filed? And then if we dissolved it, liquidated the company. So it's not a very difficult document if you don't already have an operating agreement. I just say Google a template and then fill it out.
Yeah, Rosalind, we do have one question.
Yes.
Said, if you have contractors hired for your company who are outside of the U.S., do you need to include their resumes as well?
No, because you're hiring them. They're not owners of the company. So the key is owners or managers of the company, not necessarily employees.
Okay, that answered the question.
All right. So profit sharing agreement, let's say for the purpose of this workshop, that you don't have a profit sharing agreement, but here's some examples, some information that you can enter into a Word document to answer these questions. Put it on a Word document, put your application number on there, give it a title, profit sharing agreement, sign and date it, and then PDF it and upload it into your application because it just may not apply. Now I'm going to get into the document list because it's a separate section in the application that talks about if applicable. So if it applies to your business, this is what it looks like in the online portal. So up here at the top where it says mark as not applicable. So it gives you the option to kind of go through this list. And if something doesn't apply to your business, you would just check that box. So for instance, if you've just started and you don't have quarterly state unemployment tax wage reports because yet you don't have any employees, check the box. And then when you get down here to the end, you would just say lock in. What's going to happen is quarterly tax unemployment tax wage report will no longer be a document for you to upload. So it won't say not attached. It'll just say not applicable. So that's another visual representation to show if you have completed all that you need to do for your application. So business plan, I'm just going to highlight this one because it says businesses less than 1 year old are encouraged. So again, this is my opinion, and not the opinion of Maryland Capital Enterprise or any government entity, but it says is encouraged. So if you've been in business for less than a year, don't upload the business plan if your business plan is not solid, because it will be scrutinized. So check the box here that says not applicable. And then when you lock it in, it'll show that it's not, doesn't apply. Again, that's my opinion. But this is how you get through the if applicable documents. The key is to go through the list, check off which ones that don't apply, and then the rest will be everything else that you need to upload a document to show that supporting documentation. Any questions on how to do this portion of your application?
We have one question come up, and it said, for new businesses that do not have a balance sheet or profit and loss statements, what do you recommend the business owner upload?
So again, just create a Word document. I say Word, but just create a document that has your application number, your business name, and the title, income statement, or balance sheet, whichever one applies. And if both of them apply, you need two separate documents. You need one that says income statement, you need one that says balance sheet, or whatever other document doesn't apply. They have to be separate because they have to be uploaded separately. But just state the reason why it doesn't apply. It could be you've been in business for less than a year and you have not generated any revenue. Or you've been in business for less than a year and you just have expenses, but you have to say something. You have to provide rationale as to why a mandatory document does not apply. So just sign and date it. But the key that I want to stress is it has to be PDF. We recently found that out, that you can't just upload a Word document. They want all documents to be PDF.
We had another question pop up here. For the job contracts, do we need to upload the contracts for other companies that my business has worked with?
So it's asking for your top 3 contracts. So that could be contracts where you're a sub or contract where you are prime. So in here, it gives you a description. It could be a task order, it could be a purchase order, or even an invoice is acceptable. So if you just no longer have that entire contract, then upload the invoice. Does that answer the question?
See, they came, okay, what if they are commercial companies or nonprofit entities?
Those are acceptable because it's asking for your copies of your 3 job contracts.
So
And
great, thank you.
It does not specify commercial, federal, state, local. Okay, so more if applicable documents. So licenses, license renewal forms, and permits. If these don't apply for you, check that box and do a lock-in to show that it doesn't apply. So again, it's looking for licenses and permits perhaps for trades like electrician, plumbers, or architects. That's the type of licenses it's looking for. Quarterly state unemployment tax wage report. I just gave you an example that if it's just you and you don't have any unemployment taxes that you have paid to the state, then won't apply to you. And then if you've never been denied or decertified your certification, again, this is not going to apply to you. So check that box and it won't be applicable to your company. So inventory. So I'm showing this screen here, but this came out of the question answer section from section 4 control, and we covered this during part 1. So in part 1, we talked about answering these questions because they were required. If you recall, everything in red is required. So for equipment and vehicle inventory, they're not asking you right here. When we went through this in part 1, it's not about your POVs. It's talking about company vehicles, such as bearing your company name, maybe a tow truck or a box truck. And then your office space or lease agreement, entering that information here. And then if you have a storage space, perhaps a warehouse for your company, it's asking for that information. When you get to the document section is where you would upload your lease agreement or your vehicle information showing that that vehicle is registered to your business. So the copies of the 3 contracts. Again, you had to answer the questions during the first half of your application, and that we've covered this in part 1. This is where you show the proof and upload those contracts that may apply to your business. And if they don't apply, you would just say not applicable or no contracts in the last 3 years. But you have to answer the question because those first 3 are mandatory. So more not applicable documents only if they apply to your company. So trust agreements, a business plan. Again, if you've been in business for less than a year, you heard my recommendation. Meeting minutes. If you had board meetings, upload the minutes. It's not referring to like staff meetings, but board meetings. And then if you have any joint venture agreements, perhaps for your airport concession DBE applicants, if you have a joint venture, upload that. And then other supporting documents, perhaps if you had any follow-on questions from the reviewer, they will email you. They will also put that in your online application. One of the follow-on questions that I had related specifically to the services that I said I offered on my application. So the question was, what role did I play in those services and where did I get that experience from? So now I'm telling you that when you talk about your experience in your resume, to include where'd you get that experience from. And all I did to respond to that reviewer was, again, I completed a Word document, put my application number on there, put what the question was, and that's what I titled that file, signed and dated, PDF it, and upload that information into my application for that reviewer to see. So after you've answered all the questions and you have uploaded your documents, your screen should look like this. And then you're at that point where you are ready to sign and submit your application. So here you would sign and then submit. And then once you refresh your screen, you'll see that you'll move on to the next section where receipt and processing, and it's going to indicate that your application has been received and that is under review. And I just want to remind you that this process could take anywhere upwards of 4 months, maybe even 6 months, because they have revised their online portal application. So some key takeaways. Always have to remind everyone that the application to apply is free. If you want to go for multiple certifications, I recommend that you do it at once, because they do have the uniform certification application so that you can do your minority business enterprise, your disadvantaged business enterprise, and your small business enterprise, MBE, DBE, SBE. And then also if you want airport concession, do all of them at one time. It's a 4-step application process. We went through what the required information is in part 1. In part 2, we went through documents, the mandatory and the if applicable. A couple of things I want to point out is that personal net worth is very important. Very important that that information is correct and that you have that supporting document to back it up. And it's for the majority owner. So that 51% or more owner is filling in that personal net worth statement, and it must be notarized. I highly recommend that you perhaps create a folder on your desktop, on your computer, where you kind of keep all your documents that you have used in submitting information for your application, because you may have to refer back to it if the reviewer has any questions. But it also a way to kind of organize and make sure that you have all your documents covered, because again, once you start the application and you get that application number, that's when the clock starts. And you have 90 days to complete your application. And if you don't, they will delete it and you will have to start over. So if you are a client of the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center, they do offer coaching. So I'm available for one-on-one coaching, but that is through the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center if you are a client of theirs. So again, I want to thank you all for being here today. Again, you will get the slide. You won't get the slides, but you will get the recording so that you can go back and review this information. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Marvin or Lisa and they'll get those to me. Here's my contact information on this slide. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you're not already, I would like to connect with you so that we can stay in touch. But also you'll find out about upcoming workshops that I may be giving. With that, Marvin, I'm going to stop sharing.
Does anybody have any questions that haven't been answered, or you still have? Now's the time.
2 questions. Is there money in my HSA? Do I have to include that in my personal financial? In your health savings account? Is that what you're asking? That is a good question, Stephanie. It's not a retirement account, correct? It's a savings account that you can use for medical expenses, things like that, that you can use on a recurring basis. So that is not a retirement account.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. One, thank you so much. These have been so helpful. I'm literally following along my documents as you're going through. So my reason for asking was, if you don't use all of your HSA, you can roll that over into your Roth or your 401k. So that's when it becomes part of retirement. So I just wanted to make sure all my I's were dotted, T's are crossed.
Yes.
I didn't want anyone to, I wanted to make sure everything matched. So that's why I was asking. Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Great question, Stephanie. Yep. But you're correct. If you roll it into your 401k or your IRA or TSP, that's a different story. Then it becomes a retirement asset. And then I also want to make one final plug here that if you do like these workshops, it also helps to comment in LinkedIn, Maryland Capital Enterprise, or under my page to say, hey, I sat in on this workshop. It was very helpful, because that way it gets the word out. It gets the word out for Maryland Capital Enterprise that they are having these free workshops. And it's useful information that you use to help get you through the certification. So both of us appreciate that.
Yeah, and once we send out the link to the recording, I also have a link on there that takes you to our website and lists all the different classes that we've got coming up. So all you have to do is click on it, and there's a list of them out there for you. So it'll make it easy for you.
Yeah, that's great. And Marvin, what do they need to do to become a client of Maryland Capital Enterprise?
To become a client, on the website, on both, we have two websites at Maryland. It's marylandcapital.org and the Women's Business Center at marylandcapital.org. There's two websites, but at the top there's a place for used to be called client intake form, or I think up there now it says start here. Go in and fill it out, submit it. It's all online. And somebody will reach out to you and go over whatever questions you have, whatever help you're looking for. But somebody will definitely get back to you, usually within a day or two.
There you go, everyone. So again, thank you, Marvin. Thank you, Lisa, Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center, for having me to present this workshop on Maryland Department of Transportation certifications.
Thank you, Rosalind. Again, a lot of great information. I think everybody asked some good questions, and I think we got a lot accomplished. Got some comments in here. Comments in here now. Incredible job as always. Great job. So with that, unless anybody has any other questions, or if you have any other questions, when I send out the link and all that, just you can get back to me, and we'll get in touch with Rosalind if that's what you need, if you need help through her. So with that, thank everybody again for attending, and Rosalind, thank you for, as usual, doing a great job. And hopefully we'll see you all on another one of our webinars.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.